your Billy Wood Honda forecast first.
Well, good evening, everyone. We are still tracking showers and thunderstorms across the arc limits, none of which are severe at this time. We did have a few severe thunderstorm warnings throughout the afternoon and early evening hours of today, and we will continue to track them tonight. Now, the good news I have to give you is later tonight, we are going to see a calming down of these showers and thunderstorms that then quickly pick up before sunrise early tomorrow morning. Overnight lows fall back down into the 60s. Tomorrow, daytime highs reach back into the 70s. At Forecast First, NBC 10 News at 5 starts now.
Live from the NBC 10 Broadcast Center, this is your ARC Limits news source. Voted Best Newscast and Best Weather by the Louisiana Association of Broadcasters. This is NBC 10 News, live at 5.
Coming up, there's one less person in the race for Monroe District 4 councilman. We'll share who dropped out and who they're endorsing now. And a decision has been made on whether or not former President Trump can be removed from ballots. We'll bring you the Supreme Court's ruling in just a few minutes. Plus, we're letting you voice your opinion. Stick around to try out our live polling. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyla Scott. Our top story tonight. Today, the 56th Speaker of the House and Louisiana native Mike Johnson held a roundtable discussion at Union General Hospital in Union Parish. Haley Hines has that story.
That's right, Kyla. Newly elected Speaker of the House Mike Johnson visited Farmerville to speak with community leaders about rural issues. From Louisiana to the White House, Mike Johnson is a Republican member of Congress that was born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana. Johnson made history on October 25, 2023, after being named the first Speaker of the House from the state. He is currently traveling across the state's District 4 to speak with locals. We asked Johnson what this role means to him.
There's a lot that the Speaker is responsible for, whoever holds the position. It's a lot to say grace over, but we're really blessed. We've had such great support from back home, and people are excited about it in our district. They've been very, very supportive.
We spoke with Johnson on what his goals are as Speaker of the House in relation to the state of Louisiana.
We have the same needs and concerns here that everybody has around the country. Everybody's worried about crime, they're worried about the economy and the cost of living, they're worried about their safety and security of their children, the future of their children. There's a lot of things that we can do in terms of public policy to change the trajectory of those things, and we have an obligation to do it.
Johnson also spoke on the never-before-seen history-making representation of one state in the House of Representatives.
This is the first time in the history of the Congress that any one state has had the top two officers elected at the same time. So with me as Speaker of the House and Steve Scalise as Majority Leader, Louisiana is very well represented in the House, and of course the rest of our delegation working really hard as a team. So that's a good thing for our state. We're well positioned and we've got a lot of important things to tackle.
During our conversation, Johnson also stated that he is bringing Louisiana values to the White House. Reporting live in the studio for your ARC Limits news source, I'm Haley Hines.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Haley. Out of your local election headquarters, the race for Monroe District 4 councilman has one less candidate. Marie Brown has officially dropped out of the race due to a personal family matter that will cause her to leave the city for a while. This now leaves only incumbent Carday Marshall Sr. and his opponent Bishop Rodney McFarland. Brown explained why she's thrown her support behind McFarland in a press conference earlier today. Take a listen.
But because I know that change needs to happen, and I will not be remiss in leaving this city and not knowing how long that I will be gone in the hands of the status quo. So if I'm honest with myself and know that I'm expecting change, then I would have to support the person that's running against the incumbent.
The election is set for Saturday, March 23rd. Today, the Supreme Court ruled states cannot remove former President Donald Trump from their 2024 ballots. D.C.'s Raquel Martin is in Washington with more.
The Supreme Court wasted no time handing down this decision. They heard arguments less than a month ago. In the end, the justices determined that the federal government, not individual states, can determine who's qualified to be on the ballot. In a unanimous decision, the U.S. Supreme Court overruled the Colorado State Supreme Court, which had decided Donald Trump was not eligible to be president because he engaged in an insurrection on January 6.
It's a very important decision. We're very well crafted.
Trump calls the ruling, which ends similar efforts to remove him from the ballot in Illinois and Maine, a big win for America.
The voters can take the person out of the race very quickly, but A court shouldn't be doing that.
In the opinion, all 9 Supreme Court justices agreed only the federal government, not an individual state, has the power to determine if a president is qualified for office.
Can't be done by a patchwork of state decisions.
George Washington University law professor Paul Schiff Berman says the decision sidesteps the core issue. Did the former president engage in an insurrection on January 6th?
This case does not tell us anything about that.
The ruling comes on the eve of a consequential Super Tuesday, where Republicans in 15 states will vote for their party's candidate for president. While campaigning in Texas, Trump's primary opponent, Nikki Haley, told supporters she agrees with the high court's ruling.
I'll defeat Donald Trump fair and square, but I want him on that ballot.
The conservative justices on the court are punting this issue over to Congress. They say lawmakers on Capitol Hill need to pass legislation to clarify the law. For Now in Washington, Raquel Martin, back to you.
All right, thanks, Raquel. Well, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, as we've mentioned, when more than a dozen states will hold presidential primary contests. Washington, D.C. correspondent Hannah Brandt explains what's at stake.
Super Tuesday could give former President Donald Trump a major boost in the Republican race.
We put on a rocket to the Republican nomination. It's been a rocket.
Former Governor Nikki Haley is fresh off her first primary win in Washington, D.C. And Monday, she rallied voters in Texas, hoping to carry that momentum into Tuesday's elections.
I defeated a dozen of the fellas. I just have one more fella I gotta catch up to.
But Trump has dominated every other primary contest, and polls show he's poised to win big on Super Tuesday.
Get everyone you know to the polls so we can trounce Haley.
As he gets closer to locking up the Republican nomination, Trump is turning his attention towards his Democratic rival.
The poll numbers are very good. We're beating President Biden in almost every poll.
But Team Biden is pushing back. First Lady Jill Biden spent her weekend campaigning in swing states, telling voters that Donald Trump is dangerous.
We simply cannot let him win.
The president is also hoping for a strong show of support on Super Tuesday as his campaign tries to ramp up enthusiasm ahead of the general election in November.
There is way too much at stake.
More than a third of the total party delegates will be up for grabs on Super Tuesday. In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
Well, there are more than 850 Republican delegates up for grabs tomorrow. 40 of those are in Arkansas. For the Democrats, there are more than 1,400 delegates at stake, 31, again, in Arkansas. So if you plan to vote tomorrow, all polling locations will be open from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Remember, you can find a sample ballot on the Secretary of State's website. You have to go to your assigned polling location. So if you need to double check it, just go to voterview.org. Well, be sure to tune in to NBC 10 News this Thursday, March 7th at 6 p.m. Mayor Friday Ellis, former Monroe Mayor Jamie Mayo, and Betty Cooper will be right here in the NBC 10 studio for a live debate. We'll cover topics from infrastructure to crime and even education. We'll even have a choice to voice your opinion with a live poll. Now, be sure to tune in live to help decide which candidate is best for you and your family. And of course, we talked about voicing your opinion at Thursday's mayoral debate, but we're also giving you that chance every day leading up to the debate. All you have to do, scan that QR code that you see in the upper right corner of your screen. You can also visit myarklamiss.com/vote to cast your vote. Today's question is, which issue is most important to you? Economic revitalization, crime, or flood mitigation? Now be sure to stick around as we check out the latest results at the end of the show. Now it's time to register to vote in the Louisiana presidential primary election. The deadline for the Go Vote online registration ended on Saturday, but the deadline to request a mail-in ballot from the voter registrar is March 19th. Those have to be turned back in by March 22nd. Early voting begins on March 9th and runs until March 16th. Election Day is March 23rd, as we've mentioned. On Election Day, those polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Shifting gears to the crime beat, a Monroe man has been arrested accused of beating his wife and her 5-year-old autistic son. Police say Dakari Scott was allegedly caught on video hitting the child in the head, slamming him face first into objects, and even holding his head in a pillow for over 4 seconds. Detectives say that mother can be seen defending the victim, but Scott allegedly assaulted her as well. This was all because the victim would not stop crying. Scott was arrested earlier today and charged with cruelty to the infirm and domestic battery. In El Dorado news, a new scam is making headlines, this time by sellers on fan favorite sites like Craigslist and Marketplace. Our JW Eisenheimer visited the sheriff's office and has the latest update.
The Union County Sheriff's Office is warning residents about high-risk transactions through sites like Facebook Marketplace. They say that the high risk comes from larger ticket items such as ATVs and automobiles. The suspects make the item look authentic to attract buyers and then trap them in a web of lies.
It's so easy now to establish an email address, even establish an LLC. You know, all it takes is submitting just a little bit of information. Doesn't necessarily, depending on where you're at, have to be particularly valid or vetted. The transaction was made by money order or by bank wire, and the person would send the money with the promise of, as soon as the wire hit the bank, the item would be shipped and they would get a confirmation number. And within several days, when they didn't see that confirmation number, they began to check back on that email address, the phone numbers, everything else, and finds out that it's evaporated, it's gone. Even if we were to make an arrest, I mean, more often than not, the money's gone.
Captain Stinson says that a good rule to go by is buyer beware. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Be very cautious about anything where you can't actually put your physically put your hands or your eyes on something that you're buying. They're posting it as an Arkansas Post, but they're actually all the way in Florida. If you'll save a couple of those pictures and do a reverse Google search on them, a lot of times, especially if it's a scam, these guys use the same pictures over and over and over, in the Arkansas ad, in the Florida ad, the New York ad, or whatever it happens to be, and it may be even different people using it.
If you suspect that a seller is a scam artist, contact the Union County Sheriff's Office. Reporting in El Dorado for your ArkLaMiss news source, I'm JW Eisenheimer.
Well, coming up, there's talks of bringing artificial intelligence into Louisiana schools. We'll hear what the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education president is saying.
We have a few breaks in the shower and thunderstorm activity across the ArkLaMiss as of this hour, but you can take a look at our tower cam and see the towering cumulonimbus clouds in the distance, so more rain is on the way this evening. Stick around, you're watching NBC 10 News at 5.